Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and today I have a special featured finished project video for you. I am featuring the Port Jacket by Hailey Smedley of Ozetta. This is my first time knitting an Ozetta pattern. The way I organize these videos is I start out with a pattern rundown that is information provided by the designer prior to purchasing the pattern, and then I go into my process of choosing the yarn, the color, any modifications that I made, and at the end I share some outfit ideas, and usually I make these videos shortly after finishing the project so that those details are still fresh in my mind, and then I have some ideas of how I want to wear it. Oftentimes I have not tested those outfits in the wild yet, so you are seeing my first reactions with putting these pairings together. As always, my videos include closed captioning, so you can click on that CC button. If I speak faster or slower than your preferences, YouTube also allows you to adjust the speed. I will include links to things that I talk about in the description box below this video. Sometimes you have to click on show more, and I will also include the Ravelry project page for any of the projects that I share with you today. I will definitely share with you my Ravelry project page for the Port Jacket, but also I'm thinking of any other items that I pull out for the styling section at the end of the video. I will be looking down at my notes as I am sharing the details with you. I will also be flashing pictures on the screen or screenshots of things as I am talking, and I will try to remember to refer to it, so maybe if you are doing something else that you look up at the screen if you aren't looking at it the whole time, but I don't always say something, so I just want to make sure that you don't miss the information in case you are doing something else. Okay, so let's start with who or what is Ozetta. I'll start by sharing with you a screenshot from the Ozetta Knitwear website. She said it's a dream planted by her great-grandmother, and it grew into the name Ozetta Knitwear. And she is based out of a small town in Oklahoma. A lot of her designs are nature-inspired, at least the names are, and the materials that she uses are usually sustainable, non-superwash fibers. The patterns are all available in English, and she says that most patterns are also translated into French, Spanish, Dutch, Danish, Norwegian, Svenska. Swedish? On the website are all the patterns and information about test knitting and video support for different patterns. All right, let's talk about the Port Jacket. I have always wanted to make a wool jacket. It's basically a heavier weight cardigan, more structure. I really wanted a wool jacket. And the Port Jacket had caught my eye, but I wasn't sure. I don't know. I just didn't start it yet. This pattern was released September of 2024, so really not that long ago. It is spring of 2025, and I just had my eye on it. I kept looking at it, and I thought, oh, I would really like to make that. I just wasn't entirely sure on the type of yarn that I wanted to use. Before we get into my yarn choices and all of that stuff, I did just want to tell you that I have been looking for a wool jacket for a long time, and the Port Jacket was the one that I wanted. YeJi of Handmade Co. had made two of them, one for herself and one for her husband, and they look so nice. And hearing her talk about her thought process through the projects and the yarns she chose and the modifications she made, I thought, okay, yes. This is definitely what I want to make. So let's go into the pattern specifications. I already mentioned this pattern was released September 2024. It is priced at $6.50 USD. You can purchase it through her website or through Ravelry. The recommended yarn is a worsted weight yarn at a gauge of 17 stitches by 26 rows in 4 inches of blocked stockinette fabric. Needle sizes recommended are a US 8, which is a 5mm, and a US 7, which is a 4.5mm needle. Of course, with everything, if you need a different needle size to get gauge, then change your needle size, or maybe you want to knit at a slightly different gauge. That's fine too. Just know that if you are going to change the gauge, the stitch counts and row counts and all of that stuff is going to change, potentially, and then you're kind of on your own. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, you're on your own, but it's basically like your warranty is void, right? The pattern is written out for a certain gauge, for a certain feel, for a certain type of fabric, and if you go off that, that's totally fine. I'm all for modifications, but just know that if it doesn't turn out just like the pattern says, it might be because of one of those variables, but To each their own. I'm modifying things all over the place all the time and changing up the yarns. I rarely use the yarns called for in a specific pattern, and that's, I think, fine. I think it's okay to make choices for our own preferences and what's available to us. I think you just have to keep in mind other variables. Okay, I got off on a little tangent there. Sorry, not sorry. The pattern comes in 9 sizes, graded from XS to 5XL. The way that her patterns are graded is she'll have more ease on the smaller end and less ease on the bigger end. So the port jacket has around 12 inches of positive ease for sizes extra small to large and gradually less positive ease for sizes XL to 5XL. The bust circumference that the sizes correspond to are a 30 inch up to a 60 inch, but that is not the finished garment circumference. Finished garment circumference is 42 inches to 62 inches. I will try to remember to have the metric measurements here on the screen as well for those whose brains work in metric instead of in inches. Worsted weight yarn yardages are provided in the pattern preview prior to purchasing the pattern. I really like it when designers include the yardages and grams and meters of yarn required for each size prior versus only listing the amount of balls of yarn for the one that they knit. It doesn't really help me out that much if they only list the number of balls of yarn for their sample, because if I use a different yarn, then my yardages and everything will be different. And also, it's not very specific if you just list the number of balls needed versus the yardage needed for each size. Hailey also includes yarn substitute options, which I don't think a lot of designers do. I have seen it more recently, but it is definitely, I don't think, required of any designer to have to list other yarn options. If a pattern has been tested by a variety of testers, chances are you will have other yarn options to look at from their pattern pages. But again, I don't think that is necessarily a requirement. I do think that's really nice that they provide that. For those who haven't tried a lot of different yarns, you may not even know what would be a good substitute. There is a website, I don't remember what it's called. It might just be called Yarn Substitutions or something like that. I will link to it in the description box below this video. But basically, you can put in a yarn that you are wanting to sub out, and it will give you various options that may be similar to that in weight or in fiber content or something like that. I will note that I have not used that website. I just know of it, and I have gone to it and poked around, but I've not actually used it for any specific project. The yarn Hailey uses for her sample is Let Lopi yarn. Unspun yarn is recommended. You will have the warmth, but not the weight. And if you use a worsted weight, worsted spun yarn, it will probably be heavier, which mine is, but again, I knew that going into it, and I'm very happy with my result. The port jacket is worked top down. You start in the back, knit that back section, pick up, knit the front sections, join, not in the round because you'll still be knitting flat. It is a jacket. There's no steeking involved or cutting anything open. And then once you join the front and the back, you're knitting back and forth to create the body. You pick up to knit the sleeves, and then you knit your button band each side separately, and then you have those stitches on hold, and then you knit your collar by picking up your stitches around for the neckband, and it is a folded over collar. There's a really cool short row shaping element to this, which was something that really drew my eye to this pattern, and yeah, I think that's it. I would say this jacket has a boxy silhouette. There's no waist shaping involved, though you could add that if you wanted to. You could either go A-line or cinch it in. It is meant to be a full length, full sleeves, or longer sleeves, but again, you can also adjust that as you want. The techniques listed for this pattern are knitting flat, knitting in the round, long tail cast on, backwards loop cast on, increasing, decreasing, German short rows, holding stitches, picking up stitches, a sewn tubular bind off, an Italian cast on, buttonholes, and wet blocking. There are short video clips that are included to help with various techniques throughout the pattern, which can be really helpful. They don't include any audio, so there's like no talking. There are some words on the screen, and it's close up enough to see what Hailey is doing. I'm assuming Hailey's the one doing the videos. There are 264 projects on Ravelry at this time, and there are lots of different variations of this jacket. So if Ravelry is accessible to you, I definitely recommend taking a look. Let us move on to my specific project. So I picked the extra small size, which finishes at 42 inches. For me, that's 10 inches of positive ease at full bust circumference and 7 inches of positive ease at hip circumference. I did get gauge, and I did use the needle sizes recommended in the pattern. The yarn I used is Purl Soho's Till base. It is a newer base of theirs. I talked about it briefly in a previous video as a work in progress. I don't remember when it was, but I did talk about it then. And I always forget to mention, on my Ravelry project pages, I do include the link to the video where I talked about that project as a work in progress or as a finished project. And so if you're ever looking for those kind of details, they are all listed in the Ravelry project page. Okay, back to the yarn. I will flash a picture of the yarn here on the screen. The colorway I used is Winter Grass. I don't know if it's an undyed colorway. This particular colorway in other bases has been listed as undyed, but this one does not say that. This yarn comes in 136 yards for 100 grams. It is listed as worsted or Aran weight yarn or even chunky. The needle sizes recommended are US 8 to US 10.5, which corresponds to 5 to 6.5 millimeter needles. And at 4 inches, that would be 14 to 17 stitches for the gauge. It is a non-superwash yarn made in Peru. It's recommended to be hand washed, cold, lay flat to dry. And I love this yarn. I brought over a little bit to show you. It's a very round yarn. I find it super bouncy. And it's got a 4-ply, let's see, 4-ply twist to it. Hopefully it is showing up here on camera. It is a very fluffy yarn, but not splitty. I don't feel like it's super loosely plied, but it's also not densely plied to the point where it would hurt my hands. It's very round, which gives it great stitch definition in ribbing portions, which with this jacket, it has such thoughtful details that are pretty minimal in its aesthetic that I really wanted to make sure that the ribbing would stand out. So we have ribbing down the button band, which looks like double knit, but it isn't, it's ribbing. And there's ribbing here in the shoulder sleeve section. And then there's also ribbing in the neckband. So I really wanted to make sure that that would stand out because that is such a prominent detail in this pattern. And so I thought using a really round yarn would be great. This yarn can be knit at worsted, but definitely at a denser gauge, which means it's perfect for a jacket. And so even though it's listed as Aran or even chunky weight at 136 yards for 100 grams, I knit it at the worsted weight, which creates a nice dense fabric, which I think will also be harder wearing, which means hopefully less prone to pilling in any of the high friction areas. I feel like this yarn is a blend of Purl Soho's Good Wool, which is like a fingering sport weight yarn, very fluffy, also the same fiber content. It's 100% non-superwash Peruvian Highland wool. And it also is a cross between a discontinued yarn that Purl Soho used to carry, which is their worsted weight linen quill. Maybe you have some in your collection. That linen quill yarn is a blend of Highland wool, alpaca, and linen. And I've used that fingering weight yarn a ton. But the worsted weight was also really, really round. And so I feel like this yarn is kind of a combination between the Good Wool and the linen quill worsted weight. And so if you've knit with either of those, maybe you have a little bit of an idea what this one might feel like. The price point for this comes in $15 USD per 100 grams. It's already in this like peanut skein situation, so you don't actually have to wind it. You can just start knitting from it right away. I like to wind mine into cakes because I'm not a center puller, and if I'm pulling those from the outside, it's just gonna bounce all over the place. So I still wind them into a cake, but you really don't have to. Because this yarn is non-superwash, you can actually split splice or wet splice all your ends together. The way I like to do that is I will split the plies in half, cut half of it for each of the ends that I'm going to join before I kind of twist them together and then felt them together. That way it's not super bulky. If I didn't cut half of each, the middle section would be doubly thick, which is not something that I want. And so I had minimal ends to weave in, considering I used almost 800 grams of yarn. And so I did have to weave in some ends, but I was also able to join my ends together through wet splicing or split splicing. Spit splicing or wet splicing. It is hard to say some of these words over and over again. I made minimal modifications to this pattern. I shortened my body length. I'm going to stand up here on the step stool. I shortened the body length by about 1.5 inches. It does still go past my hip. I feel like this is plenty full length for me. And I did lengthen my sleeves by 1.5 inches. I feel like my sleeve length to what I have knitted at looks closer to what the pattern looks like. Whereas if I had knit it to pattern, then it would have been a little bit shorter. This sleeve length is long enough for me to cuff if I want to, and then it would not be covering my hands, but still be at a good length. I like that it is a looser cuff because it makes it easier for wearing over things, which is what a jacket's intended to do. So even though I do like it wide, I didn't want it that wide. So I did do one extra decrease rep, which then also lengthened my sleeve. I followed all the instructions for the construction as written. The pattern does recommend toggle buttons, which are like a line, a horizontal line, but I decided I wanted to use these buttons that I picked up in a yarn store in Bergen, Norway, and these are pewter Norwegian buttons. They are concave, and I just feel like they are so nice. The buttonholes are slightly big for it, but they don't pop out. They're just not super snug, but I do love how they look. Bergen is a port city, and this is the port jacket, and so I just thought it was perfectly appropriate to use buttons that I picked up in a port city for my port jacket. I did do the Italian cast on in the pattern, which was a new technique for me. And I did an Italian bind off for the hem instead of the tubular bind off. And I feel like they look really nice. I don't really notice a huge difference between the two. So they blend in really well together. I just didn't feel like doing the setup rounds for the tubular bind off, so I didn't. So I did the Italian sewn bind off for the hem, but I did follow the instructions for the Italian cast on for the button band. And I feel like it looks really nice. And then similarly for the sleeve cuffs, I did the Italian sewn bind off instead of doing the setup rows to do a tubular bind off. So the overall recommended yardage of worsted weight yarn is 1,090 yards for the size that I knit, and I ended up using 1,059 yards. So really, really close, only 30 yards different. And again, I did shorten the body and I lengthened the sleeves and I used a different type of yarn. But I would say that estimation is pretty close. I think that is everything that I wanted to mention about the pattern and my process. Now I've pulled some pieces that I thought might be fun to try on with this jacket. Of course, being a jacket, I plan on having it over all sorts of different outfits. I specifically knit it in a more neutral color just to make it easy to pair with anything. I can wear it with neons, I can wear it with neutrals, I can wear it with bold prints, I can wear it with stripes or whatever I feel like wearing it. Yeah, we'll see what combinations I get up to. First up, we have what I was already wearing earlier, which is a pair of dark green pants with cargo pockets and a flannel shirt that is in a similar color scheme. So it's like beige, tan, olive green. So the flannel shirt has a deeper armhole. It has a bit of positive ease and it fits into this jacket just fine. I find a jacket with more depth in the armhole area to be more comfortable, because if I have a shirt that happens to have a deeper armhole, I won't have a bunch of extra bulk in the armpit area, making it uncomfortable. And this definitely has deeper armholes, and so it works really well together. I feel like this is something that is very easy for me to wear on a day-to-day basis, and it's very comfortable. I feel like this works great for spring or fall, just an easy throw on. So Now I'm going to change into something else. All right, I decided to keep the pants the same, but the top I changed. This is my Skyline tee. It is a pattern by Tori Yu. I knit mine in Purl Soho's linen quill. The colorway is Vintage Celadon. This is a light fingering weight yarn. I believe I use a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle for this at a 25 stitch gauge for 4 inches. And it is so comfortable. The drape is lovely. But anyway, we're not here to talk about this tee. I have a video on it somewhere, and I'll link to it somewhere. This is definitely a springy tee for me, and it is not something I would wear in the summer, but I wouldn't wear this port jacket in the summer anyway. So really, I guess all these pieces are for the 3 seasons out of the year and the 9 months out of the year for me here in Minnesota. I think the only time I really don't wear wool is June, July, and August. The rest of the year is fair game. So that is what these pieces will be for spring, fall, and winter. Yeah, this is an easy combination. I feel like this color of jacket, this like very neutral beigey color that I don't wear a lot of, is a great complement to all the other colorful pieces that I have. So now I'm going to try on something else. So I changed out the pants for black leggings and this Petrichor Pinafore. It's a pattern by Sew Liberated. This is sewn with a cotton linen blend fabric, and it is something that has pockets. So if I'm wearing something like leggings that doesn't have pockets, it's great to have something I can throw on with pockets. I feel like this is a very fun and very comfortable outfit that I could also wear every day, anytime. And I would probably just wear it with my striped wool socks and Birkenstocks and be on my way. So let's try on something else. Into my Slightly Sassy V. This is a pattern by Amy Scher, also knit in Purl Soho's linen quill yarn. It is a 3/4 length tee that is perfect for transitional weather. And I have it paired here with a tiered skirt that is self-drafted, made out of linen fabric. This one does not have pockets because I wanted to be able to wear it in various different directions. There are pieces of plaid remaining from a previous project, and maybe I want that in the front or the side or the back. I really like this outfit too. I feel like it is also super comfortable and something that I would definitely wear in the spring or the fall. I suppose if it's winter and not super cold, I could wear this with leggings underneath or wool tights, and then boots, and I feel like that would be okay. I feel like 45 degrees Fahrenheit. I could still do this without a winter coat. I think that would be fine. This morning with the wind, it was 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and with this jacket and the plaid flannel, it was okay kind of running in and out. I probably wouldn't go for like a long walk at that temperature with just this jacket and the plaid flannel, but for kind of like quick ins and outs, it was perfectly comfortable. So yeah, this is super fun. I like this. I would definitely wear this. Okay, I have one more outfit to try on for you. So the dress is a semi-self-drafted dress made out of a cotton poplin leaf print fabric. I made a boxy top shirt. There are a few different patterns out there. I did modify this one a lot. I brought in the armhole quite a bit. I shortened the bodice quite a bit. And so it doesn't really resemble the original pattern. Then I added a bunch of fabric to do a gathered skirt and added pockets. The scarf that I'm wearing is one that I tested for Tiff Nealon. I think it's the Ridgeline scarf, and I knit this in Purl Soho's Daily Wool, and I just love this bright pink. It is so much fun to wear to add that little bit of color, maybe not little, this big pop of color to any outfit. Now this jacket does have this high collar, so I feel like a scarf isn't really needed. However, this one is not that bulky, so I feel like I could still wear it with this jacket and just not button maybe the top two buttons. If I was planning on buttoning, I could just button maybe the bottom ones. I could probably, well, no, well. So I could still button some of the buttons, but maybe leave the bottom one open since I have this full skirt, leave the top one or two open because of the scarf. But I don't think a scarf is necessary with this jacket. It does add more warmth and coziness, but because of the high collar that keeps the neck warm, I don't think it's actually necessary to wear a scarf. I'm trying to see if the scarf can be worn on the outside. I think it could be on the outside of the collar too if it felt too bunchy on the inside. I don't know. I'm just playing around. I like this outfit though. I think this one is super fun. I would definitely wear this out. This is a very springy color combination with the leaves and the bright and the neutral. Okay, I think that is everything I wanted to share with you today about this port jacket. Maybe it demystified some parts of the construction, and hopefully you found a little bit of inspiration in my trying on of different outfits with this jacket. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time.